I always believed family meant unconditional support. For years, I quietly paid my brother Jackson's mortgage, funded his children's college accounts, and helped whenever they needed it. Then last December, 1 week before Christmas, my phone buzzed with a text from him. "The family gathering is no place for losers. Sorry about your business, but we need to keep things positive this year." Instead of arguing, I responded with a calmness that surprised even me. That single moment changed everything between us forever. Family meant everything to me growing up in our modest suburban Ohio home. As the oldest of 4 siblings, I naturally fell into the protector role, especially for my younger brother Jackson. We shared a bedroom until I left for college, staying up late talking about dreams and ambitions. I promised him I'd always have his back, a promise I kept even when our paths diverged dramatically. I majored in computer science, riding the tech boom with fortunate timing. My first startup sold for $8 million when I was just 27, and my second did even better at 32. Jackson took a different route, dropping out of community college to marry his high school girlfriend Tara when she got pregnant with twins, Amy and Adam. He found work in construction but struggled to advance beyond entry-level positions. When Jackson and Tara had their 3rd child, Lily, they were already drowning in debt. They'd bought a house they couldn't afford in a neighborhood with good schools, determined to give their kids advantages we never had. I admired that commitment but worried about their financial stability. One night, Jackson called me in tears, afraid they'd lose their house after missing 2 mortgage payments. Without hesitation, I transferred $20,000 to his account. His relief was all the thanks I needed. That began a pattern that would last 7 years. I quietly set up automatic payments for their mortgage, never mentioning it, just telling Jackson I was investing in family. I never saw it as charity, but as fulfilling my promise to have his back. Beyond the mortgage, I established college funds for all 3 children, contributing $500 monthly to each account. I wanted to ensure they'd have opportunities, regardless of Jackson's financial situation. Despite my financial success, I lived modestly in a comfortable but not extravagant condo. I focused on building businesses rather than a family of my own, though I dated occasionally. My siblings often teased me about being married to my work, especially at our traditional family Christmas gathering, hosted at our parents' remodeled farmhouse. These annual celebrations became increasingly uncomfortable over time. My parents, both retired teachers, subtly compared our life choices. My sisters Laura and Diane, both married with children, received effusive praise for creating real families, while my career accomplishments received passing acknowledgement. Jackson, despite his financial struggles, earned admiration for his family values and parenting. Last October, everything changed. My 3rd startup, an innovative renewable energy storage solution, failed catastrophically after our primary investor pulled out unexpectedly. Years of work and millions in personal investment vanished. I wasn't financially ruined. My earlier successes provided security, but the professional setback stung deeply. I kept the details private, sharing only with family that my business had failed. Their initial responses seemed supportive, with promises to be there for me during this difficult time. Jackson even called, saying, "Now you know how the rest of us feel struggling sometimes." Then came the group text chain about Christmas planning, where I discovered the truth. My cousin Taylor accidentally included me in a thread clearly continued from previous conversations I'd never seen. Scrolling through the messages, I found dozens of exchanges where Jackson mocked my business failure, calling me the fallen tech genius and joking about my first taste of reality. Worse than his mockery was learning he'd been belittling me for years. In previous messages, he referred to me as the lonely cash machine and poor Rich Bronson who thinks money makes up for having no life. Each revelation felt like a physical blow. The brother I'd supported for years had been secretly resenting and ridiculing me the entire time. Most shocking was discovering other family members participated in or tolerated these conversations. Even my parents occasionally chimed in with comments about wishing I'd find more balance like Jackson had. The family I'd prioritized had been judging me all along, viewing my success as somehow less valuable than conventional family life, and now seeming almost satisfied by my failure. This discovery completely shattered my understanding of our family dynamic and my place within it. Everything I thought I knew about our relationship was suddenly thrown into question, leaving me wondering if any of it had ever been genuine. The group text chain revealed more than just past betrayal. As Christmas approached, plans were being actively made without me. My mother asked if everyone could make it on December 25th, and Jackson replied, "Everyone who matters will be there, Mom." I stared at my phone in disbelief. Was I being deliberately excluded from the family Christmas gathering for the first time in my life? After a sleepless night, I called Jackson directly the next morning. My stomach knotted with anxiety. "Hey, I noticed the Christmas plans in the group text. Was I accidentally left off an invitation?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. His response left no room for misinterpretation. "Look, Bronson, I talked with Mom and Dad, and we all agreed this year should be about positivity. Christmas is for celebrating, not for moping around feeling sorry for yourself because your business tanked. You're excluding me from Christmas because my company failed?" The reality was so absurd I needed him to confirm it. "Let's be real. You've been successful so long you've forgotten how to be normal. Nobody wants to spend Christmas with someone who's going to bring everyone down with their problems. It's no place for losers, man. Maybe next year when you're back on your feet." My hand tightened around the phone. "Jackson, I've supported you through countless setbacks. I've never once called you a loser. That's different. I have a family to support. My struggles actually matter. Your problems are just rich guy problems. Nobody relates to that." His voice dripped with contempt. "Plus, the kids want a fun Christmas. They don't need Uncle Bronson's business failure sob story." "Have Mom and Dad really agreed to this?" I asked, still struggling to believe it. "They understand it's for the best. Laura and Diane too. We all want a drama-free holiday. It's just 1 year. Get over it." After hanging up, I called my parents, hoping Jackson had misrepresented their position. My father answered, sounding uncomfortable from the first hello. "Dad, Jackson says, I'm not welcome at Christmas this year. Is that true?" A long pause followed. "Son, we thought maybe you'd want some space to process your situation. Jackson suggested you might not be in a festive mood. And you agreed with him? After 38 Christmases together, you're okay excluding me because I had a business setback?" "It's not like that, Bronson. We just thought, well, Jackson was quite adamant that it would be awkward. He said you might make everyone uncomfortable with your," Jackson called it, "your negative energy right now." The betrayal cut deep. "And what do you think, Dad?" Another pause. "I think family should stick together in tough times. But we don't want conflict at Christmas. Maybe Jackson is right that you need some time." My sisters proved equally disappointing, offering weak excuses about going along with what Mom and Dad wanted and not wanting to get in the middle. Not one family member stood up for me or questioned the decision to exclude me. That night, I sat alone in my condo, surrounded by mementos of family gatherings and business achievements. My first impulse was to lash out, to call Jackson back, and remind him exactly whose money had kept a roof over his family's head for years. I wanted to expose his hypocrisy to everyone. The angry text messages I drafted and deleted would have burned bridges permanently. Instead, I took a long walk in the crisp December air, letting the cold clear my thoughts. By the time I returned home, a new clarity had emerged. This situation revealed truths about my family I'd been avoiding for years. The relationships I valued weren't what I thought they were. Jackson's betrayal hurt most, but everyone's complicity showed me where I truly stood. Rather than an emotional confrontation, I needed to approach this like a business problem. First, I needed all the facts. I spent the next day organizing years of financial records related to Jackson's family. Monthly mortgage payments totaling over $150,000. College funds now worth $72,000. Emergency transfers for car repairs, medical bills, and school activities totaling approximately $80,000 more. While reviewing bank statements, I noticed something odd. The property tax payments I'd been making on Jackson's house had increased substantially 3 years ago. Further investigation revealed why. Jackson had taken out a home equity loan against the house I was paying for, borrowing $120,000. Curious about how this money had been spent, I checked social media. There I found evidence of lavish spending Jackson had never mentioned. A boat, exotic vacations, designer clothes for Tara, and a workshop full of expensive tools, all while telling me they were barely making ends meet and occasionally asking for extra help with unexpected expenses. The final piece clicked when I found loan documents in my email archive. Jackson had asked me to co-sign the home equity loan, sending documents he claimed were for refinancing to lower their payment. I had trusted him completely, signing without scrutinizing the details. He had not only taken advantage of my financial support, but had actively deceived me to extract more. This discovery transformed my hurt into something colder and more resolved. The brother I'd protected all our lives had been systematically exploiting my generosity while secretly resenting me for it. The decision about how to respond became suddenly perfectly clear. The morning after discovering Jackson's deception, I called my financial advisor, Martin. We'd worked together for 15 years, and he knew about my support for Jackson's family, though not all the details. Martin, I need a complete accounting of all financial assistance I've provided to my brother over the years. Everything tracked, categorized, and documented. How quickly can you pull that together? Given how organized your records are, I can have it for you by tomorrow. Is everything okay, Bronson? No, but it will be. I also need you to stop all automatic payments to or on behalf of Jackson and his family, effective immediately. Martin paused. The mortgage payment is scheduled for the 1st. That's just 3 days away. Cancel it. And the college fund contributions too. Everything stops now. This seems sudden. Are you sure you don't want to give them some notice? This could put them in a difficult position. That's exactly what I'm counting on, Martin. I also need to know my legal obligations here. Since I've been paying their mortgage voluntarily, I assume I can stop at any time without legal consequences? Correct. These were gifts, not contractual obligations. The only exception might be the home equity loan you co-signed. You're legally responsible for that, if they default. That complication required attention. Set up a separate account with enough to cover the remaining loan payments if necessary, but don't make any payments yet. Let's see how Jackson handles this first. After speaking with Martin, I consulted my attorney, Sandra, about the broader situation. She confirmed I had no legal obligation to continue supporting Jackson's family, but advised documenting everything in case of future disputes. Financial support given freely can be withdrawn freely, Sandra explained. However, given the substantial amounts involved and the duration of support, Jackson could potentially claim there was an implied contract or that they detrimentally relied on your continued support. What documentation would help protect me? I asked. Gather every communication where the money was characterized as gifts rather than loans. Document any instances where Jackson acknowledged these were voluntary acts of generosity on your part, and prepare a formal letter stating that you're discontinuing financial support to be sent after the fact. I also needed to understand exactly who knew what. Had Tara been part of the deception, or was she in the dark about my financial support? A discreet inquiry to my contractor friend who occasionally worked with Jackson revealed something surprising. According to Jackson's coworkers, he frequently bragged about performance bonuses and commission checks that allowed his family to live beyond his apparent means. The picture became clearer. Jackson had been taking credit for my financial support, presenting himself as more successful than he was. Tara and the children likely had no idea I was the actual source of their financial stability. This explained how Jackson maintained his pride while accepting my help, and why he might be especially threatened by my business failure. It reminded him too much of his own financial reality. Armed with this knowledge, I developed a comprehensive plan. First, I would document everything meticulously. Second, I would allow the financial consequences to unfold without warning or explanation. Third, I would remain completely unresponsive to Jackson until the situation reached a crisis point. Finally, I would ensure the truth became known to everyone involved, including Tara and the rest of the family. Most importantly, I would proceed with absolute calm. No angry confrontations, no emotional outbursts. My revenge would be delivered through simple, methodical withdrawal of the support they'd taken for granted for so long. While organizing old emails for documentation, I discovered something that stopped me cold. 3 years earlier, I had been dating Christine, a woman I'd seriously considered a future with. The relationship ended when she abruptly moved across the country for a job opportunity, telling me she needed to prioritize her career. Among my archived emails was a message from her I'd never seen, caught in my spam filter, explaining she'd actually turned down the position but ended our relationship because Jackson had told her about my commitment issues and history of leading women on. Further digging revealed other instances where Jackson had interfered with my personal and professional relationships. He'd told a potential business partner about supposed ethical corners I'd cut in previous ventures. He'd discouraged a cousin from accepting my offer to invest in her restaurant, claiming I would take creative control and ruin her vision. For years, he'd been actively undermining my relationships while benefiting from my generosity. This discovery solidified my resolve. Jackson hadn't just been ungrateful for my help. He had actively worked to sabotage my happiness and success out of what could only be jealousy. The brother I'd protected and supported had been undermining me at every opportunity. That night, I drafted, but didn't send a letter to Jackson documenting all his deceptions and betrayals. The act of writing it was therapeutic, but I recognized that sending it would only give him time to develop countermeasures. Better to let the situation unfold naturally, allowing the financial reality to speak for itself. The pieces were in place. Now I would wait and watch as the consequences of Jackson's choices caught up with him. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace about our relationship, not because it was healed, but because I finally saw it clearly for what it was. Christmas morning arrived with a quiet I wasn't accustomed to. For my entire adult life, this day had meant the cheerful chaos of family gathering at our parents' home, the aromas of Mom's cooking, Dad's off-key carols, nieces and nephews tearing through wrapping paper. This year, there was only the hollow silence of my condo and the distant sound of neighbors celebrating. I'd declined invitations from friends who'd heard I was free for Christmas, preferring solitude to explaining my family situation. Instead, I made myself a simple breakfast and took a long hike in the snow-covered state park nearby. The physical exertion helped clear my mind, and the winter landscape offered a serene beauty that suited my mood. My phone buzzed periodically with generic Merry Christmas texts from acquaintances. Nothing from my immediate family, until mid-afternoon, when my mother sent a group photo from their gathering. Everyone smiling around the tree, Jackson center stage with his arm around our father. Tara and their children arranged perfectly beside them. The message read, "Wishing you peace and healing this Christmas. We miss you, and hope you'll be in better spirits next year." The casual cruelty of that message excluding me, and then pretending it was for my own good, confirmed I'd made the right decision. I didn't respond. Later that evening, Jackson sent a separate message. "Hope you're not moping alone too much. The kids got everything they wanted this year. Tara and I finally feel like we're getting ahead financially." Attached was a photo of expensive presents under their tree, including a gaming system for Adam and designer boots for Amy that I knew they couldn't afford without my help. The irony was almost amusing. They were celebrating their financial success with one hand, while the other remained extended for my next contribution. I set my phone aside without replying, knowing that silence would eventually speak louder than any words I could offer. The day after Christmas, I placed the calls I'd planned. First to my bank, confirming the cancellation of all automatic payments related to Jackson's family. Then to my lawyer, finalizing the documentation of my financial support and the formal notice that it had been discontinued. Finally to Martin, my financial advisor, giving final approval for the financial separation plan we'd developed. "Are you sure about the timing, Bronson?" Martin asked. Their mortgage payment is due in just 5 days. They'll have no warning. I'm sure. The timing is precisely the point. My voice was calmer than it had been in weeks. This wasn't about anger anymore, but about boundaries and consequences. The first sign that my plan was working came on December 30th. 6 missed calls from Jackson appeared on my phone while I was in a meeting with investors interested in my new business concept. I didn't return them. On January 2nd, the texts began. There's some issue with the mortgage payment. Can you check what happened? 3 hours later. Seriously, Bronson. The bank says the payment didn't go through. Can you fix this as soon as possible? By evening. What the hell, man? Are you messing with our mortgage because of Christmas? That's seriously messed up. Call me back now. I maintained my silence, focusing instead on rebuilding my business. The renewable energy storage concept that had failed still had merit. The original investor had pulled out due to internal problems, not because the idea lacked promise. I refined the technology, developed a more robust business plan, and began meeting with new potential investors. On January 5th, Tara called for the first time. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was confused and worried. Bronson, it's Tara. Jackson's been acting strange and saying there are problems with the house payment. He mentioned something about you usually handling it. I'm not sure what's going on, but if you could call me back, I'd really appreciate it. So Jackson hadn't told her the truth yet. That was interesting, but not surprising. The calls and messages escalated in frequency and urgency over the next 2 weeks. Jackson veered between anger and panic, while Tara's messages grew increasingly confused and concerned. I documented everything, but responded to nothing, allowing the situation to develop naturally. On January 18th, I received an unexpected email from my parents. We're concerned about Jackson and Tara. They've mentioned financial troubles and suggested you might be withholding help because of Christmas. We hope that's not the case. Whatever disagreements you have with your brother shouldn't affect his children. Please let us know what's happening. I drafted and deleted several responses before settling on a simple, I've supported Jackson financially for 7 years. I recently discovered he's been lying about that support and actively undermining me. I've discontinued my assistance. He's a grown man who can support his own family. This isn't about Christmas, though the timing is convenient. The response came from my father alone. I don't understand what you mean about supporting them. Jackson works hard for his family. Are you claiming you've been giving them money? That email confirmed another suspicion. Jackson had hidden my financial support from our parents too, likely to preserve his image as the successful family man. I replied with a brief summary of the mortgage payments and other assistance, attaching bank statements as evidence. My father's response came hours later. Your mother and I had no idea. We need time to process this. Please know that we never would have excluded you at Christmas had we understood the situation. Jackson told us you had refused to help them with medical bills last year when Adam broke his arm. We believed you'd been unkind to them. Another lie exposed. I had paid those medical bills in full without hesitation when Jackson called from the emergency room. The family narrative was unraveling thread by thread, exactly as I'd anticipated. By allowing the financial reality to assert itself without explanation or argument from me, I forced the truth into the open in a way that couldn't be denied or distorted. On January 25th, exactly 1 month after the Christmas exclusion, my intercom buzzed. Jackson stood outside my building, looking disheveled and desperate. I watched through the security camera as he repeatedly tried to call my phone. After 15 minutes of being ignored, he eventually left. Later that day, I received a text from Tara. Bronson, I need to speak with you directly, without Jackson. There's so much I don't understand about what's happening. Could we meet somewhere private? After a month of silence, I finally responded. Coffee shop on Maple, tomorrow at 10. It was time for the truth to be fully revealed. The coffee shop on Maple Street offered the neutral ground I wanted for this conversation. I arrived early, selecting a corner table that provided privacy without isolation. Tara entered at precisely 10 o'clock, her usual polished appearance noticeably diminished. Her hair was pulled back hastily, her face drawn with worry. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sitting down opposite me. "I've been trying to make sense of what's happening, but Jackson isn't giving me straight answers." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "What has he told you about your financial situation? That there's been some mix-up with the mortgage? That you usually handle some investment thing that pays for it, but you've stopped because you're angry about Christmas?" She hesitated. "It doesn't make sense to me. Jackson always said the house payments came from his work bonuses. We've never been late before." "Tara, I've been paying your entire mortgage for 7 years," I said evenly, sliding a folder across the table. "Every month, without fail. These are the bank statements showing the transfers. I've also been funding college accounts for the children and covering major expenses whenever Jackson asked." She opened the folder with trembling hands, flipping through page after page of documented payments. The color drained from her face. "This can't be right," Jackson said. "He told me his construction management job was doing well. The Christmas presents, our vacation last summer, the boat." Her voice trailed off as understanding dawned. "He used your money for all of it, didn't he?" "Not just my money. 3 years ago, he took out a home equity loan on your house without telling you. I co-signed it, thinking the documents were for refinancing. He spent through that too." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't understand. Why wouldn't he tell me? Why let me believe we were doing well when we were dependent on you? Pride, maybe, or control. Jackson's created an illusion for everyone, including you. He presents himself as financially successful to the family while privately accepting my help. Then he resents me for the very success that allows me to support him." Tara wiped her eyes, anger replacing shock. "And you just stopped all support without warning? What about our children? I discovered Jackson has been actively undermining my relationships and career for years, while simultaneously taking my money. Then he excluded me from Christmas, calling me a loser for a business setback. Yes, I stopped the support without warning. Actions have consequences, Tara. But we could lose our house. The kids might have to change schools. This affects innocent people, Bronson. I understand that. But continuing to enable Jackson's deception isn't the answer. He's lied to you, to our parents, to everyone. He took advantage of my generosity while actively trying to hurt me. What would you have done?" She sat silently for several moments. "I would have wanted the truth, which is what I want now. All of it." For the next hour, I methodically laid out the complete history. The initial support that grew into ongoing assistance, Jackson's escalating requests, and the discoveries I'd made about his deceptions, the Christmas exclusion and the cruel messages that followed, the evidence of his active sabotage of my relationships and business opportunities. "I never knew," Tara repeated, looking shaken. "He told us all you were distant by choice, too caught up in business to care about family. The kids barely know you because Jackson said you weren't interested in being close to them." Another painful revelation. I'd sent birthday and Christmas gifts faithfully, invited them to activities regularly, only to be told they were busy or the children had other commitments. Now I understood those invitations had likely never been shared with the children at all. "What happens now?" Tara asked finally. "That depends partly on Jackson. I'm willing to have a conversation if he's ready to be honest, but I won't resume financial support under the previous terms. Those days are over. I need to talk to him, to understand why he did this, and our parents should know the truth too." She gathered her purse, looking suddenly determined. "Thank you for meeting with me, Bronson. For all the support you've given us that I never knew about. And I'm sorry about Christmas. I would never have agreed to that if I'd understood the situation." After Tara left, I received a call from my mother. "Jackson and Tara are here," she said, her voice tight with emotion. "Tara's telling us things that are hard to believe." "About you paying their mortgage? About Jackson lying to all of us? We need you to come over." When I arrived at my parents' house an hour later, the scene was tense. Jackson sat stone-faced on the couch, while Tara stood by the window, arms crossed. My parents looked shell-shocked, aged years in days. "Is it true?" my father asked immediately. "Everything Tara's telling us about you, supporting them financially, all these years?" "Yes," I confirmed simply. "Every word. And you never told us?" I respected Jackson's privacy. He presented it as temporary help that became long-term. I never realized he was lying to everyone about it. My mother turned to Jackson. "How could you do this? Take advantage of your brother's generosity and then exclude him from Christmas? Call him a loser when he's been keeping a roof over your head?" Jackson finally spoke, his voice hard. He held that money over me, made me feel small by being the big successful brother. "You all treated him like some financial genius, while looking at me like I was barely getting by. I didn't ask for his help in the beginning, he offered it." "That doesn't excuse lying," my father said firmly. "To your wife, to us, to your children, or taking out loans against the house without telling anyone, or actively working to undermine Bronson's relationships and business opportunities," Tara added, her expression showing she'd fully absorbed everything I'd shared. "You did what?" my mother gasped. Jackson's face flushed with anger. He was always showing off, flaunting his success. Someone needed to take him down a peg. The conversation continued for hours, painful truths emerging with each exchange. My parents expressed deep regret for excluding me at Christmas, explaining that Jackson had told them I refused to help with family medical expenses and had made hurtful comments about their modest lifestyle. More lies designed to isolate me from the family. "We should have talked to you directly," my father acknowledged. "Asked for your side before believing what we were told. I'm so sorry, son." By evening, the family had divided into clear camps. My parents and sisters expressed shock and support for me, while maintaining concern for Jackson's children. Jackson himself alternated between defensive anger and attempts to justify his actions. Tara remained largely silent, her disillusionment palpable. As I prepared to leave, my mother pulled me aside. "The mortgage payment, Bronson. Is there any way? I can't continue enabling this, Mom. Jackson needs to stand on his own feet. I understand that. But the children, could you give them some time to make other arrangements? Just a month or two?" I considered this. My issue was with Jackson, not his innocent children. "I'll think about it. But any further assistance will come with complete transparency and strict conditions." On the drive home, I received a text from Tara. Jackson finally admitted everything. He's been living a lie, our entire marriage. "I don't know what happens next, but I needed you to know I believe you, and I'm sorry." The truth was finally exposed, but the family crisis had only just begun. Jackson's house of cards was collapsing, and everyone connected to him would feel the impact. What remained to be seen was whether anything could be salvaged from the wreckage of trust he'd created. By early February, Jackson's financial situation had deteriorated rapidly. The mortgage company sent formal default notices, and their household bills piled up unpaid. Jackson took on overtime and weekend work, but his salary alone couldn't maintain the lifestyle his family had grown accustomed to. I maintained my distance, watching events unfold through updates from my parents and occasionally Tara. Jackson made no direct attempt to contact me after the confrontation at our parents' house, his pride apparently preventing him from asking for help even as his world crumbled. The family remained divided. My parents and sisters recognized Jackson's wrongdoing but worried about the children. Relatives took sides, some condemning my cruelty and cutting off support without warning, others acknowledging that Jackson had created this situation through years of deception. My own life had begun moving in a positive direction. The refined business plan for my energy storage technology attracted serious interest from investors who recognized its potential. I began assembling a new team, more carefully this time, with greater emphasis on compatible values as well as technical skills. One evening in mid-February, my security system alerted me to someone at my door. The camera showed Jackson, looking haggard and unshaven. For a moment I considered ignoring him, but something in his defeated posture suggested this wasn't another attempt at manipulation. When I opened the door, the sharp scent of alcohol hit me immediately. Jackson wasn't drunk, but he'd clearly been drinking for courage. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice rough. I stepped aside silently, leading him to the living room but offering no refreshment or comfort. He stood awkwardly, refusing to sit when invited. "The foreclosure notice came today," he said finally. 60 days to bring the payments current. Or they take the house. Tara's talking about moving in with her sister in Michigan, taking the kids with her. I waited, offering no reaction. "You got what you wanted," he continued, a flash of the old anger returning. "You've completely destroyed my life. Happy now?" "I didn't destroy anything, Jackson. You did that yourself over years of lies and manipulation. I never asked for your charity in the first place. You offered to help with the mortgage that first time. Made me feel like I couldn't provide for my own family. You could have declined. Instead, you took the money, then more, all while resenting me for having it to give. You lied to everyone about where it came from. You actively worked to sabotage my relationships and business opportunities. And then you excluded me from family Christmas for being a loser when my business hit a rough patch. Which part of that should I feel responsible for?" His shoulders slumped. "I just need more time. A loan to catch up the mortgage, until I can figure something out. For the kids' sake, why would I loan money to someone who spent years lying to me and attempting to undermine my happiness? Someone who hasn't even acknowledged what they did, much less apologized for it." Jackson paced the room, tension radiating from him. "What do you want from me? To beg? To say I was wrong? Fine. I was wrong. I should have told Tara and everyone the truth about the money. I shouldn't have excluded you at Christmas. Happy now? That's not an apology, Jackson. That's tactical acknowledgement to get what you want. You haven't addressed why you did those things or shown any genuine remorse." He whirled toward me, years of resentment erupting. "Because I was supposed to be the successful one. Mom and Dad always said I was the charming one, the one with people skills. You were the quiet, awkward brother who'd work for someone else his whole life. Then suddenly you're a millionaire tech entrepreneur, and I'm struggling paycheck to paycheck with 3 kids. Do you know what that feels like? To have your identity completely upended? So you decided to sabotage me while simultaneously taking my money? To create the illusion of success while ensuring I couldn't find happiness elsewhere? I didn't plan it. It just evolved. The money was there, and you seemed happy to give it. I told myself you owed me for always overshadowing me with your success, that you were just showing off anyway. And the active sabotage? Telling Christine I had commitment issues? Warning investors away from my projects?" Jackson's face registered surprise. "How did you find out about that?" "I did my homework once. I realized what was happening. I found the evidence, Jackson. All of it." He sank onto the couch, the fight draining out of him. "I was jealous," he admitted quietly, "of everything you had that came so easily. The money, the freedom, the respect. When you started dating Christine and seemed happy, I couldn't stand it. Same with your businesses. If I couldn't have success, why should you have everything?" The raw honesty was startling after years of deception. For the first time, I saw my brother clearly not as the confident family man he pretended to be, but as someone consumed by insecurity and resentment, unable to celebrate others' happiness because it highlighted his own perceived inadequacies. "The worst part," Jackson continued, his voice breaking, "is that Tara might leave me, not just because of the money, but because of the lies. 7 years of marriage built on fiction. She says she doesn't know who I really am anymore." Something shifted in that moment. Not forgiveness exactly, but recognition. Jackson had constructed an elaborate fantasy to protect his ego, and now that fantasy had collapsed entirely, leaving him to face the reality he'd been avoiding. "I can't save you from the consequences of your actions," I said finally. "But I'm willing to discuss a path forward under certain conditions." "Name them," Jackson replied, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "First, Complete honesty from this point forward, with me and with everyone else in your life. Second, you take responsibility for your financial situation, no more living beyond your means. Third, you work to make amends, not just with words, but with actions, beginning with Tara and the children. And if I agree, then we can talk about a structured plan to help your family transition to financial independence. Not a bailout, not a blank check, but a responsible path forward. Jackson was silent for a long time, the weight of the choice before him evident in his expression. Finally, he nodded. I need to talk to Tara. To really talk to her, honestly, for maybe the first time. And I need to figure out who I actually am without the lies. As he rose to leave, he paused at the door. I am sorry, Bronson. Not just for what happened, but for who I've been. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. It wasn't a perfect apology, and it came under extreme duress, but it was perhaps the first genuine thing my brother had said to me in years. That night marked a turning point, not an ending or a resolution, but the first step toward whatever our relationship might become in the future. In the months following Jackson's apology, we began the difficult work of rebuilding both his financial stability and our fractured relationship. True to my word, I developed a structured plan that would help his family avoid immediate crisis while establishing a path to independence. First, I made a single lump sum payment to bring the mortgage current, preventing foreclosure. However, I transferred the deed to a trust I controlled, with clear terms. Jackson and Tara could remain in the house while following a strict financial plan. They would pay rent equivalent to what a reasonable mortgage would cost for a home they could actually afford. The difference between that amount and the actual mortgage went toward eventually paying me back, though I made it clear that full repayment wasn't my primary concern. Second, I restructured the children's college funds, placing them in a trust they could access for education only, regardless of my future relationship with their parents. Whatever happened between Jackson and me, the children wouldn't suffer for it. Third, and most significantly, I offered Jackson a position in my new company. Not out of charity, but because despite everything, he had skills that could be valuable. His construction experience provided practical insight for the physical implementation of our energy storage systems. The position came with a fair salary commensurate with his experience, not excessive, but enough to support his family modestly if they budgeted carefully. The arrangement came with non-negotiable conditions. Jackson would work directly under my company's operations director, not me, and would be evaluated by the same standards as any employee. He would participate in financial counseling sessions with Tara to develop realistic budgeting skills. And he would continue the individual therapy he had begun after their marriage nearly collapsed. Tara, for her part, returned to the nursing program she'd abandoned when their first children were born. With proper financial planning and childcare assistance from my parents, she could finally pursue the career she'd put on hold during the years of artificial affluence. The transition wasn't smooth. Jackson struggled with the humiliation of having his financial failures exposed to everyone and working in a subordinate position in his brother's company. There were setbacks when old resentments flared, moments when he nearly sabotaged the opportunity out of pride. The financial discipline chafed after years of spending without consequences. Our parents played an unexpected role in the healing process. Having seen the damage caused by family secrets, they initiated monthly family meetings where conflicts could be addressed openly. They moderated the first difficult conversations between Jackson and me, helping us express long-buried feelings without the conversation devolving into accusation and defense. One Sunday afternoon in April, our parents hosted a family gathering, not a holiday, just an ordinary dinner. Everyone attended, my sisters and their families, Jackson, Tara and their children, and me. For the first time in memory, I felt no undercurrent of judgment or comparison. The pretenses had been stripped away, allowing for authenticity previously missing from our interactions. After dinner, Jackson asked to speak with me privately. We walked through our parents' backyard to the old oak tree that had held our childhood swing. I need to say something, he began, and I need you to just listen until I'm finished. I nodded, giving him space to continue. I've been working with my therapist on understanding why I did what I did, not just to make excuses, but to make sure I never repeat those patterns. The truth is, I've been jealous of you since we were kids. Not because of anything you did wrong, but because I always felt I had to be the outgoing, successful one, and when you became successful in your own way, I couldn't handle it. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Instead of being proud of you, I resented you. Instead of appreciating your help, I took advantage of it while convincing myself you were somehow belittling me by offering it. I lied to everyone because the lies were easier than admitting I wasn't the person I pretended to be. The worst part is how I poisoned my own children's relationship with their uncle. They barely know you because I kept you at a distance, afraid you'd overshadow me in their eyes too. I robbed them of your influence in their lives, and I robbed you of the chance to be close to them. His voice broke slightly. I'm not asking for forgiveness. What I did was too calculated, went on too long for that. I'm just telling you that I understand now what I did, and I'm committed to being different going forward. For my family, for our parents, and for whatever relationship you and I might be able to salvage. For the first time since this all began, I felt something hard within me soften, not forgetting or excusing, but recognizing genuine growth. Thank you for saying that, I replied simply. It matters that you understand it. The job, the financial help, the second chance, it's more than I deserved, Jackson continued. I know that. It wasn't about what you deserved, I explained. It was about giving your family stability while you figured things out, and about giving us a chance to rebuild something worth saving. We rejoined the family gathering, and I found myself drawn into a game of basketball with Adam and Amy, Jackson's twins. They were 13 now, awkward and earnest in that uniquely early teenage way. As we played, Amy mentioned an interest in computer programming, something Jackson had never shared with me. Uncle Bronson, Dad says you know all about computers and starting businesses. Could you maybe teach me sometime? That simple request represented everything that had been missing, the natural connection between uncle and niece that should have developed years ago. I'd like that very much, I told her, catching Jackson's eye across the yard. He nodded, an acknowledgement of the change, of doors being opened rather than closed. By summer, both our professional and personal relationships had established new, healthier patterns. Jackson proved surprisingly adept in his role at my company, his practical approach complementing the more theoretical perspectives of our engineers. His sobriety in the workplace, showing up prepared, accepting feedback, collaborating effectively, gradually extended to other areas of his life. In July, he and Tara invited me to dinner at their home, a much more modest meal than the lavish affairs they'd hosted during the pretend prosperity years, but more genuine. After dinner, Tara showed me the acceptance letter for her nursing program and their detailed budget for managing during her studies. For the first time, they were building a life based on reality rather than illusion. That Christmas, 1 year after the exclusion that had set everything in motion, our family gathered again at our parents' home. There was an unspoken agreement that we wouldn't ignore the events of the past year, but wouldn't dwell on them either. We were different people now, with clearer understandings of ourselves and each other. Jackson pulled me aside during the gathering, handing me a small box. Inside was a framed photo of us as children, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning widely. I found this while we were downsizing, he explained. It reminded me of who we were before things got complicated. I'm not saying we can go back to that simplicity, but maybe we can remember that underneath everything, that connection still exists. I looked at the hopeful faces of our younger selves, untouched by the competition and resentment that would later define our relationship. I'd like that, I said, and meant it. The healing wasn't complete. Such deep wounds never heal without leaving scars. But we had found a path forward based on truth rather than illusion. Jackson was learning to define success on his own terms, rather than in comparison to me. I was learning that sometimes supporting someone means holding them accountable, rather than simply giving them what they ask for. Most importantly, we both recognized that genuine family relationships must be built on respect and honesty, rather than financial dependency or obligation. Money cannot buy authentic connection, and attempting to use it that way inevitably creates resentment on both sides. That Christmas night, surrounded by family, who now saw each other clearly for perhaps the first time, I realized that sometimes what appears to be an ending, a painful exclusion, a severed connection can actually be the beginning of something more genuine and valuable. By dismantling the false structures we'd built, we created space for something real to grow in their place. I think about that often now, when Jackson's children call me for advice, or when he and I collaborate on projects at work. The relationship we're building isn't perfect, but it's authentic in a way it never was before. And in that authenticity, we've all found something worth more than any financial support I could have provided. The freedom to be ourselves, flawed and human, but genuinely connected. Has someone in your family ever taken advantage of your generosity? How did you handle it? Leave a comment below with your experience. If you found value in this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to hear this message. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes setting boundaries isn't just good for you. It can be the wake-up call someone else desperately needs.